here doing another build video. I was supposed to have done a build video on the Universe class, however I couldn't resist just doing a build on this little girl. Now obviously she comes from the advanced heavy cruiser, and she comes from one of the original series movies, but she plays a special bit because she's just a lovely looking ship. And she has, you know, a brilliant little hull. I mean, this is the fleet version of it, so it does have a stronger hull than the standard Tier 6 Resolute class. So, let's give you a bit of a look here. So, as you can see, it's the Fleet Advanced Heavy Cruiser, Tier 6. So, the way I built this isn't the 100% best build for an engineering. I'm not too great at the engineering builds, but it is a pretty decent little build, to be honest. I mean, I've not had any problems. I've been running advanced queues with it, and the hull's been staying up pretty nicely, and I haven't even fully unlocked its full mastery yet. Obviously you do get a tier 5 as well, but because I've already got the tier 6, and I've already completed the mastery on it, I've already got that ability. So that's what we've got there. And what we're going to have a look at here is, obviously I have got the wave disruptor beams. You can use standard disruptors, but I went for these because I like the kind of phaser look to them. And it's going to sound stupid, why not use phasers? But I like the abilities of the disruptors, and I find that they work better for me. So I've got the disruptors there. Plus the other reason is because before the recent updates, you could only have one omnidirectional phaser beam until they bought out the one from the reward mission. So that was another reason why I used disruptors, and obviously had them look like the phasers. But I do also like the abilities that the disruptors have. So as you can see, I have two omnidirectional beams, the House of Mortok disruptor 360 degree, and I have a crafted omnidirectional disruptor beam. Obviously your omnidirectional disruptor beam you can craft at level 15 of your R&D projects, but they do require quite a bit that sometimes may be a little bit difficult to get hold of, such as the isolinear chips. So then we have the Saboteur's disruptor beam. That actually comes from the Lobby store. It's a good little disruptor beam to have, and I like the abilities on it, so I decided why not use that as well. I've currently got in production a disruptor beam for the Terran task force, so it has a pretty good little effect on it. I'm assuming it is the same as the cannons, where it has that withering effect on it, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't read the stats on it in quite a while. So going back to the actual ship itself, so I've got all of these here. Now, obviously, with your engineering class starships, the best thing that you want is for them to actually take hits rather than dish out a huge amount of damage, which is what the escorts are for. So, if you're an engineering officer, these are the ships that you want to go for, is your engineering ships, just because that's where you're going to benefit most. But as we have here, I have all these weapon slots here. Obviously, broadsiding is great on, because you can get every single weapon to hit them at once. The more omnidirectional you have, the better as well. You can also equip a kinetic cutting beam, which some people do recommend having. However, I decided not to. Not because I didn't like it or anything like that, but it's just because I preferred the look, and it doesn't serve me any issues destroying the enemies, so this actually works pretty nicely for me. So for the devices, I have the red matter capacitor. Can be found in the Phoenix lockbox, or the Phoenix boxes when they're in. I have the subspace field modulator. I got this right at the beginning, so I believe it is from a mission. I've got some heavy disruptor satellites. So again, just pop one of them when you're in a battle, and it gives you a little bit of a hand, but not a huge amount, unfortunately. I couldn't find anything else to put in there, so I just shut the battery in there for now. Which actually does work, because this thing gets tracted like crazy, as I found out, and the control isn't that great, so the engine battery actually comes in handy. So for your shield, deflector, impulse and warp, I have an advanced fleet resilient shield, which has 5% absorption and 5% bleed through, rather than the whole 10% bleed through, so it absorbs 5% of the damage. With a maximum shield capacity of 9,472.9, it's a decent little shield, to be honest. The regeneration is pretty high, and it has the reduced disruptor damage, plasma damage, and anti-proton damage by 15%, which is pretty good. It's quite a nice little one to have, because a lot of people will either run disruptor, especially if you're taking it into a PvP, which with this build I probably wouldn't recommend, mainly because it's not the tankiest of builds, but it's the more common. So if you're having issues in PvE, that's where you can use this one, and it does quite a nice job with all of this loadout I have here. So I have the advanced deflector here, and it has your plus 20 starship shield restoration. Not too much of an issue, mainly because your hull's going to be taking the damage. That's the whole point of an engineering ship. So you have your engineering where the hull takes the damage, your science where the shields take the damage, and your escorts, you deal the damage before being damaged. Yeah, so you have your plus 30 starship hull capacity, which is absolutely brilliant, which is what you need. It's quite a high hull capacity there, actually, with only being a little bit lower than this. Oh, actually a little bit higher. It used to be a little bit lower. Okay, so a little bit higher than this here, which is a fantastic little console, but we'll get around to that in just a second. So going on from the deflector, you have weapon accuracy. Does help, obviously, because if they're in an escort, you want to be able to hit them. Or if the AI are in an escort class ship, again, same thing. So next we have shield capacity. It does help to have your shields absorb some of the blows for you, so you're not directly getting hit all the time on your hull, because obviously that's just going to chip away your hull very quickly. So that does help as well. The exotic particle generator, not really an issue for me, to be honest, because I don't really do too much exotic damage. Probably should have quit some more exotic damage abilities, but I'd rather not, to be honest. I'd rather just go in with what I know. And then we have the hull regeneration there. Very good. Obviously you want to regenerate as much hull as possible. And 10 starship control expertise. Again, very good, because if you are in a PvE where you have Folians, they tractor beam like crazy, and you want to be able to get out of there. So next we have the assimilated sub-transwarp engines. Can be found from the reputation tabs. Lovely little engine, works really well. One of the best engines in the game. So you have all your abilities here. You have your impulse expertise, your engine power settings, your sector speed. We've got all of that all right there for you. Obviously, the more of the set that you have, the better the effect. So if you have two sets, you're going to have that plus starship hull regeneration or restoration, giving that a little bit of boost for improved hull healing. And then you have the plus 10 hull regeneration, improves passive hull regeneration. And when you take in damage, 2% chance to trigger autonomous regeneration sequencer for 10 seconds, which give you 2.6% of your hull regenerated per second, and a plus 0 to 50 all damage resistance values. If it didn't hate it when it does that. All damage resistance rating value increases as hit points fall. So obviously, the lower the hull, the stronger the resistance. But it cannot be triggered more than once every 60 seconds, which isn't actually too much of an issue, to be honest. I mean, you don't really notice that time going past when you're actually in the middle of a fight. So you have set 3, which will give you a multi-regenerative shield array. As you can see there, while any shield facing is below 20%, incoming damage has a 10% chance to trigger 90 shield regeneration. Reduce damage to shields by 50%, removes hazards and damage over time from you for 0.55 seconds, which basically just gets rid of the ones you have on you at that point. Again, can't be triggered more than once every minute. And the assimilated tractor beam does damage tractors, but that's not really what we're after at the moment. So moving on to the warp core. This is Elite Fleet Plasma Integrated Warp Core. I actually normally just use this one normally on my escorts, so I do actually need to get one that's going to benefit this engineering ship more than what this will. But then we have the plus 60% power rate, obviously very good for if your weapons and that get shut offline, they regenerate pretty quickly. A minus 10% weapon power cost, which is again very good. Plus 10 resistance rating to subsystem power drains. So it helps with your engines being shut down, your shields, your weapons, your auxiliary. So maximum warp factor of 12.8, obviously that's pretty high. So you have your plus 20 Starship warp core efficiency, as well improves power levels when low. So, and then you have add 7.5% of your shield power to your weapon power as a bonus power. So this does increase your weapon subsystem, which is okay for this ship. You maybe want to look a little bit more for shields, but it's always good to have that extra weapon power on there for you. So then we have a plus 3.3% all damage per subsystem with 75 or more power. Current total plus 3.3%. We have a 50% recharge time reduction to slipstream, which again when you're in battle is not really an issue, but it is that nice little reduction there, because obviously slipstream does take time to reload, and you really want to, when you want to get there somewhere quickly, you want to perhaps pop it a couple of times before you actually get there. Okay, so moving on to the tactical consoles, we have a 37.5% disruptor damage with a plus 1% critical chance, and this goes for all of them. So I won't obviously go through every single one, going along again, this, that and the other, because they're identical. So this is, instead of the normal tactical consoles that you'd have in there to benefit your beam arrays, you have this one which will give you that exact amount of damage there, the plus 37.5, but you'll also get a plus 1.9% critical chance. The higher the critical chance, obviously the more critical hits you're going to hit, and you want it to be roughly about 20% if you can, over 20. We then have in the science consoles, these are universal consoles, with the 0-point energy conduit, which comes from the Romulan reputation, again giving you that 2.2% critical chance. Gives you a 2.2 power to all subsystems, and then you have the 24.6 Starship Drain Expertise, improves energy and shield drains. You can use your crew slots with your engineering shots. It's mainly just the absorption of hits that you want to be focusing on. So we have that again. It does have a set production here, which does give some extra benefits. If you'd like to use a torpedo on it, I would probably recommend using this so you can get some of these extra damage, so you can get the plus 32% chronoton projectile damage, so that will help as well. So then we have the set 3, which is the temporal inversion field. As you can see there's quite a bit there. So to all enemies within a 5 km radius, it gives a minus 200% flight speed, and then a minus 400% flight speed versus small craft, a minus 150% turn rate, and a minus 150% power recharge speed. So in other words, for your enemies, it will give that reduction on their power transfer rates for their subsystems. To self, when it's equipped, you'll get a plus 50% flight speed, and a plus 100% turn rate, and a plus 150% recharge speed, which again will benefit greatly. But again, I don't have these attached, so I won't be getting these benefits, but it is something that you can add on there. Obviously, you have the tachyonic kinetic converter, you have the disruption device, the temporal disruption device, and if it wanted to actually show me what we had there, that'd be great, and the dual beam bank. But that's chronoton based, that's the issue. We're looking for disruptors. So, coming up to this console, this is the one I showed you at the beginning of the video, very shortly. It's a pretty decent little console. Again, it comes from the Loadout store. The Bioneural Infusion Circuits. All of this, you notice, all of mine are epic grade. They come at Mark 12, so you will need to upgrade them. So you have a plus 28.1 Starship hull capacity, so it increases the maximum hit points. And then you have plus 28.1 Starship control expertise. Going to help a lot with being tracked again, having your engines all shut offline, etc, etc. Gives you a plus 25% critical severity, which when we get onto the stats, I'll show you is a big deal. So then we have the Crescent Wave cannons, the sets here, everything like that. If you didn't want to get rid of them for you, I would have shown you everything we have there. Then we have the Electric Subspace Torpedo Launcher, and again, it says at the bottom, the Bioneural Infusion Circuit, which we already have. I believe the Crescent Waves are actually disruptor damage base. You can actually use them, but in this ship, cannons aren't the best, so probably stick with beams. As we got here, so having that set 2, you have disruptor damage and shield capacity, plus 8.9% disruptor damage, plus 17.8 Starship shield capacity, which would be a good little add-on. And we have the set 3, damages the attacker, gain a haywire charge every 10 seconds up to 3 max. For each haywire charge, 5% chance to reflect up to 50% prerequisite of one incoming damage, incoming energy damage back to the target in the form of a disruptor pulse wave. So basically you're reflecting that damage, which gives a nice 100% shield penetration. So it will go straight through the shields and hit the hull, which is a pretty nice little bonus. So we have the Unspeakable Energy, improves haywire, maximum number of haywire charges increases to 6, and increases chance to trigger to 10%. But it only works when equipped on an Alachi ship, which is a bit of a shame really. Moving on to the next one we have, which is another ball reputation, which is the Assimilated Module, giving a 1.2% critical chance with a plus 11.5 critical severity. Obviously with them working together, you'll have a higher chance to get your critical hits with the critical chance, and with your critical severity it will do more damage. So, and then after that we have the plus 5 weapon power setting, which does benefit your weapon powers obviously, because if you run out of energy when firing all your weapons off in one volley, it's not really going to be that great for your second volley. Then we have a plus 6.3 Starship hull regeneration. Again, helps with the regeneration of your hull, which is what your ship is all about. The strength of the hull and the damage and the tanking it can take. You then have a plus 28.6 Starship control expertise. Again, it helps with all the controls. So we have now, these are fleet consoles. These next two. They are slightly different, so I will go through them with you. So the first one gives you that 25% plus 25 all damage resistance rating, which is good because that's all damage. There are some consoles which you would have a higher damage resistance, but it doesn't cover all of them. Which then you have the plus 18.8 Starship hull restoration, which will improve your hull healing. So again, as I said, it will help tank out the ship. So like I said, this isn't a major one for PvP, but it's good because I have seen a few people recently, especially level 60s, who have come down into a level 30 deep space encounter and haven't been able to do an ounce of damage to, i.e. a Borg sphere, which in that case was a Borg sphere, and it was actually quite disappointing because I sat there watching them sit there and pummel it for 30 seconds just to get it down to 40%, which was, well, wasn't the best, to be honest. So the next one that we have is the plus 25 all damage resistance rating. Again, you can get higher ones. However, this does give you the extra bonus, and it covers all of them. So for a little bit less, you are getting a cover on all of them. To which you then have the plus 12.5 Starship hull capacity, which increases your hull again. So again, being an engineering class ship, you want that extra hull on there. So the more hull you have, and the less you can chip away from that hull, the better. So the higher resistance you have. Now I put this one on here because I do like its abilities, and I actually keep this on all of my ships. So it has a plus 66.7% power transfer rate. Again, it's great for if your systems get shut offline, so you can then just quickly rebuild those energy levels. But it gives the plus 25 starship hull restoration and the plus 25 starship hull capacity, which again for this ship is a pretty good little thing. So the sets that we have there is we have the 5% fire cycle haste, which is good for your tactical ships, especially if you have that on there. Again, I don't have these sets on here, I only have the one. And then you have the reinforced engineering, which for this would be pretty good, so it might be worth perhaps looking to see if we can get all of them equipped. You do have the Trilithium Tricobalt torpedo launcher, not the best torpedoes in the game, they take a lot to recharge and they don't go like normal torpedoes. Then you have the omnidirectional there, I have to bring it back. Torpedo, oh I saw it just a second ago, seemed to have lost it. Oh well. But you have those sets there and you can see obviously what you need to get them. So that's it for all the consoles and everything like that. Again, with the disruptors, if you don't mind the green, look for the beam arrays that have your hull, your shield penetration on it, because obviously your weapons will go through their shields, and it does give that extra added bonus of actually being in the encounter for less time. So for next, I'm going to take you on to the normal standard settings. Or stats, sorry, rather not settings, sorry, I'm cleaning up cat puke as I'm doing this, so it's a little bit distracting. There we go, so let's go over and look at the stats. As you can see, I have a pretty decent accuracy. These are just base stats of the Sol system, so they will increase and decrease, etc., depending on your abilities. So this is just the base stats, so when you're actually in an encounter, it will increase. So we have the critical chance, which is what I was going through with you. It's that it does have that chance to hit a critical hit. But as you can see, it's 19.7 as a base stat. So I can actually, obviously with weapons you can, and the abilities that you get it higher. So you normally want roughly about a 20% at a minimum, which is more acute for your tactical, your escorts, mainly because it does, you know, they're there to dish out the damage before getting damaged and run away like little fairies, which is kind of what I do when I'm using my escorts. So you have the severity. So obviously this is 101.0, so 101, I don't know why they put the 0.0 in there. So it does give that extra bonus damage when coming to a critical hit. So the defense ratings, this is a little bit low because I'm actually standing still. If I was to increase the speed to which I'm moving, as you can see, it has gone up to the 71.33, which is pretty decent. So then we have the hull, which is 101.351, which again is just a base stat, and I can repair 203.8% per minute, which is is pretty decent. I'm just going to stop before I get to the edge of the map, because knowing I'll carry on, and we'll probably end up going to the edge of the map and looking like an absolute twonk. So let's have a look at the shields. So the regeneration rate of the shields is 1,311.6 shields per 6 seconds, which with only 12,220 max shield capacity isn't bad. But again, these are base stats, so they will change. So you can have all your resistance here, as you can see, it's at 42.3%, which is pretty good, especially for a nice, even, leveled out build. So with them all in there, it does give you a nice little, when you're being fired upon, it holds up pretty nicely. So what I will say is, again, this is more for a PvE if you're having trouble in PvE. So it's something to really look at that way. We have then the general, which is your flight speed, power transfer rate, and your turn rate, which will change as you move. So having it at 9.4% or degree a second isn't the best, but again, I'm standing still, so it is lower. The turn rate is slower. see. Speed up, quicker turn rate. So as I show you the stats again, there we go, let's put that down, so going all the way down, it has increased to that 20. Now your cruisers obviously aren't the quickest at turning, but that's what they're designed for. They're not designed to be as quick and nimble as an escort. You have got certain ships which actually are pretty much an example of how slow they can actually turn, such as the Universe class you can see over there. Obviously a very slow turn rate, mainly because of the sheer size of it and the fact that it's quite a heavy duty ship if built correctly. So you also have stuff like your light cruiser, which is your Miranda class starships, which is like the first starship you get in the game, which is a tier you can use that one, but again you won't really be wanting to use that, to be honest. You want to get the tier 6 version if you can get hold of it, because you will get that extra hull, which is quite a big difference, and you will get everything else you need there. So what I'm going to go through you now is my abilities that I have on here, which are pretty decent. Like I said, I don't normally have any issues with them. So what I would normally say is swap these two around, so you have Tactical 3 and Overload 2, mainly because the character I've put into this slot doesn't actually have Beam Overload 2. It's Beam Overload 3, which is a little bit of a... well, I did try and swap it out before I started. Your beams fire at will. The reason why I have that on here is mainly because I have an ability on my traits, which once this is used, then that you get a 100% damage increase on your beam overload after that has finished. So with your, let's just go out to the tactical team. So obviously if you go to number 3 you will get the increased rate as well, but with number 2 you get a plus 24 Starship Energy Weapon Training, which improves energy weapon damage for 10 seconds. Same with projectile, and it distributes shields receiving damage for 10 seconds. And obviously you can see it removes hostile boarding parties and tactical debuffs, so it does help a little bit. So on here you've got all of these slots fitted in, because that's obviously with the ship, that's how many console slots you have. So as you see, I've got 2 of the same here. So with your weaker ones like this, your only level 1s, they actually get used more if you have them more than once. So it does benefit to have the extra heal there, because it will give you 1372.5 shield regeneration, which also keep your shields up. Not too great against players again who use penetration like I do on my escort, but it gives you a resistance there, and it gives you a 3,010 points. So you have your engineering 3 here. I'm just going to auto execute that because I always do. So you have a plus 8,902 hit points, and repairs disabled systems and engineering debuffs. So I have got the emergency power to shields 2, which I would prefer it to be on the hull, so it might be changed around to see what I can have to benefit the hull on there. Have engineering 1, which gives 5,341.2. Again, it's a lower one, so you should be able to use that and then come around to use that one. I use the directed energy modulation on this because it does give a 10% energy shield penetration, which is pretty decent to have, because obviously the more weapons that you have go through the shields, the more the shields, or the less damage to the shields and the more damage to the hull. Reverse shield polarity, in case I'm feeling a little bit slow in my reaction times, I can use that. Obviously it'll give me the damage as shields, which is always good, allowing my hull to somewhat regenerate a little bit. So on the science, I only got 2 slots, so I've got the tractor beam on there, because when you're doing certain PvEs, such as ball disconnected, the Queen likes to run away like crazy, so keeping her still is pretty decent. I have the hazard emitters on here, which gives a plus 8,698.9 hit points over 15 seconds. It also does a plus 18.3 all damage resistance rating for 15 seconds, and continuously removes debuffs and damage over times for 15 seconds, so which again is a pretty decent little ability there, just to help with tanking out. But like I said, this isn't for PvP, which I'm not very good at building engineering ships. Tactical ships I can build quite easily, and I normally go around with a vape ship just to destroy and run away. But engineering I do for some reason find more difficult. Science I'm pretty good at as well, so I can actually create so the shields are nigh on impenetrable, but engineering just seems to be where I'm not at. So on the L triggers here, I have all my tactical abilities because I am a tactical officer, which is why engineering doesn't really benefit me too much, same as science really. I am more suited to tactical class starships, but there are certain abilities which you can have. So such as you've got this intelligence fleet, which gives you certain stealth if you're using a cloaked ship, but you don't really get too much of them around, to be honest. The perception includes, improves the detection of cloaked ships, which is pretty good. You have 10% shield penetration and a 10% armor penetration, which obviously, if you have that shield penetration, you'll have the ability to penetrate the armor on the hull, which will increase the damage slightly. Molecular shield generator, which will help kick the shields up with a 911 shield regeneration per second, with a 22% shield resistance as well. So obviously, unless an enemy is using your penetration there, it will quite a bit of damage for you. So the next one that we have is just this over here. As you can see, I've got the red matter capacitor there. It's all on auto execute, the subspace field modulator. I have the weapons capacitor, but again, I normally just use that warp core for my tactical. So I need to get one which will benefit the engineering. You have your satellites there to help fire, lay down a little bit extra cover fire. Also have this rock and roll, which will also benefit when your hull is being chipped away a little bit, because it will give that 100% flight speed. It's immune to slowing effects. It does turn the turn rate set to 0, so you cannot turn whilst this is active. But then gives a plus 20% turn rate for 10 seconds after using it, and then a plus 20% defense rating after using it for 10 seconds for both of them. But you will also all incoming damage. What I will say is with this, it has been known to actually glitch out a little bit in the fact that you use it and you're still taking damage. It never used to actually do that, but they did an update, as they do, and after that, it actually, whilst you're using rock and roll, you still absorb that, you still take damage for some reason. So try to use it when you've got more hull than none. I have noticed that this effect actually happens more when you have a very minimal amount of hull rather than 40-50%. So that's that for this little ship. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you some information. Obviously, please comment if you need any questions answered. I'm not the best player, but I know what I'm doing. I know how to benefit with what I'm given. But yeah, so when it comes to upgrading all your stuff as well, try and always upgrade and save as much lithium as you can. Use your R&D research to get your upgrade patterns, and then upgrade them on an upgrade weekend. As you can see, we have this upgrade weekend coming up on November the 30th. So try and scavenge as many upgrades as possible so you can use that. It will finish on the 4th, normally at 5 PM. It's normally, but they've actually looks like they've changed it to 6 PM. Okay, and that will really benefit you when you're upgrading, because you'll get more tech points for the upgrade, so it will take less to upgrade. Theoretically, you can get certain upgrades from like the Kelvin lockboxes, which are universal upgrades, and they work really well, especially with this, because they don't require dilithium. Obviously, with your upgrades that your standard upgrades will require dilithium. You can even go into the C store as well. I mean, at the moment there is a pack which you can buy, which is the Master Ring. So if you have the money to buy it, you can buy your keys there, and you get a free upgrade token with it, which will upgrade your item to maximum. So that's always a good little thing to have. So that is everything really. Like I said, it's a nice stocky little ship for PvE, not really causing any issues with the advanced, especially with the advanced PvE queues, which is where I seem to, a lot of the time we see people who don't actually know hugely what they're doing in the PvE slots. For some reason it always works that way, but it will give you a little bit more time to figure out what you're doing, to do more damage to the enemies. And the only time I've actually been destroyed in this ship is actually once, and that was actually only last night, mainly because there was an issue with the rock and roll. I activated it too late, and because I wasn't focusing on how much hull I had left, and got absolutely obliterated. So that was actually my fault and lack of concentration there. But to the fact I was going against 2 dreadnoughts by myself as well. So, you know, a fleet of 2 dreadnoughts and a fleet of it was actually Folians and a fleet of recluse, and you know, your weaves and everything like that hitting me kind of didn't do me too much justice whilst I'm by myself. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to leave a like and a share. Everything can be found on YouTube as well. For people who are watching on YouTube, yes, you are on YouTube, you are watching it from there, but this is because this is a live stream from Twitch, which you can catch us on most nights now, streaming a little bit. However, for at the moment, I am currently doing it today in the morning because unfortunately I have work later on, so I can't do it when I get back home from work because it'll be too late. So I'm doing it in the morning instead. So I hope you all enjoyed. Drop points in the comments on what you think may improve the ship build as well, because it may also then be leading to another version of the ship build. Any questions again, please drop them down in the comments and I will answer them as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I hope you enjoy your days. Bye.